Encounter Talks with Dawn at Gessner Ministries, a forum for discussing challenging topics, dissecting truth, discovering hope and light in a world that desperately needs revival.
Well, here we are, Wes. Every week we get to do this, and I enjoy the opportunity to just listen or watch your message, and it gives me focus to think about certain themes that you're working with, and I know the one that you're working with now is that of faith, and this week it's a contagious faith, and it makes me realize that our influence is so critical because a part of that is our faith. And if we don't have a strong faith, obviously, we're probably using our influence in a way that may not be as effective as it could be. So give me a little bit of a background. I know you're in Hebrews chapter 11, but just set us up, because I know you talked about the Barak, and that name isn't real familiar to me.
Right. Well, the story is found in Judges chapter 4, but Barak gets mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11 because of that being a chapter where people that did exploits that took faith got honorable mention, I suppose, as being people that we should think of or remember. And so when you go to Judges 4 and read the story, that's what I was sharing. And ironically, it's really more about Deborah in my mind than it is him, although he came along and he finally got the job done. And even though he didn't get the credit and the glory, he did stay strong. But it was Deborah's faith that actually motivated him, I believe.
Yeah. And I realize you had like 5 points. The first one was the strong faith is necessary for us to have that contagious faith, obviously. But you also went on, I think it may have been point 2, where you don't want to confuse a strong faith with just being strong.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about that one because, and there's different ways to view what do you mean about being strong. I thought of this, a strong personality. You certainly could confuse a strong personality with a strong faith, because
Right.
that certainly has been a part of what I have observed over time. But just what is it about a strong faith that you would highlight?
Well, I guess I would say a strong faith is not a strong faith in yourself. It's not a strong faith in your skills, your gifts, your strengths. All those things are positive, and all those things we should use and let God use. But our faith is strong in Him, not in ourselves.
Yeah.
So if we are strong, then our faith is in ourselves. If God is the one providing that strength, then our faith is strong.
Yeah. Well, I know that one of the points of the message that you gave was that of a sanctified faith, and that all plays right into that, because obviously, if our life is surrendered, it's not us trying to live this out in our own strength, right?
Well, and I kind of digressed there a little bit in that point. I guess I still don't consider myself a Calvinist in any way, shape, or form. And if people understand what that means, there's basically 2 major streams. One is Calvinism, one would be Wesleyan Arminianism, which I just still find it hard to believe that it's impossible to live a surrendered life, or the one that would keep you, we live a surrendered life. Most of us, when it comes to the legal law, we keep the law. We don't seem to have a problem with that, but there are a whole bunch of people in this world that, including preachers, that have convinced people that there's just no real hope until you get to heaven of ever getting rid of sin in your life. And I just don't totally agree with that, I think.
And when that is the case, when we're told that all the time, we actually believe it, and so we live it out.
Well, yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want to believe it? But
yeah,
I just think God, who spends His whole time all the way through the Old and New Testament telling people to live holy, surrendered lives expects it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I won't get into that big argument, but so for me, that was what I was trying to, it's a surrendered life of faith, willing to do what God asks you to do.
Yeah. Just from a sort of a big picture look at this topic of a contagious faith, the one thing that was in my head when I was listening to the sermon is, and I know that you had touched on it, especially when you talked about, a strong faith or being strong, the personality that's strong. I immediately thought about, and I know I talked to you about this, and we may have even touched on it in the last video podcast, but sometimes some of the most effective moments of people's faith that has influenced me has not been because it was their words that they were providing to me, but it was just this consistent lifestyle that spoke so strongly to me. I think there's something about that. It's for me. There's a contagiousness to that for me.
Right. And I think Deborah had a contagious enough faith that it got Barrick moving in the right direction. And even when he, it's kind of childish in some ways. It's just a fascinating story all the way around when you have a woman in that culture telling a man or suggesting very strongly what he should do. And then him saying, well, I won't go unless you go with me.
Yeah.
It's just kind of his faith was in steps. It was coming, but he got it done. He did go do it eventually. He wasn't self-motivated. It was her faith that got him to be a believer. Right.
Set up the Tony Dungy illustration for me, because that was powerful. I just wanted to share it again for anyone that might be watching the video.
I don't have it in front of me, but I don't remember the year when his last year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers NFL team. They had a horrible loss the last game, which kept them out of the playoffs, and so he was fired because that's what happens in the sports world. It's expected, and so it happens. But he had left such an impact in the community with what he did outside of football that there was actual grieving from people and organizations that had nothing to do with the NFL.
Yeah,
that's a pretty contagious faith. That's and he went on to do great things with his life in other places, but with football. But he could have been discouraged. He wasn't. He just knew that he was so comfortable, and he always comes across like this. I don't think football is his God. I think God's his God.
Yeah.
And so he lives out his faith, as we all should be, by getting involved in ministries and things and people's lives and carpooling kids to school, whatever he did in the off season. So I think that's the testimony of that.
And another thought there as well is what we do is for what we do it for the glory of God and not for ourselves. And that's a pitfall that we often are tempted to fall into, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and like you said, I think point 5 was that a contagious faith leads to successful conclusions. And
well, the illustration I gave, do you remember that story of the Burnhams missionaries?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So they go away for an anniversary trip to a resort in the Philippines, wind up 100 days in the jungle, hostages, and every now and then there would be videos released of him talking, not asking. I don't think he ever asked for. Well, he probably asked for help. Please help us, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then was killed in the rescue. And her life, it's one of the positive things about social media is that you can go find what somebody's doing now. So I read that book and I read the story of what happened when she got back, and she does do speaking about it, but not to be creepy, but just I found her Facebook. It's just a common Facebook, and didn't take any effort and she's just this person living her life of faith. Obviously, here in the States, looks like she has grandkids, and I think what's, in my heart, Don, I really I live a pretty good life, and I've been blessed many times over. But I work with people constantly, day in and day out, who are in the middle of tragic circumstances.
Yeah.
So I'm a chaplain to about 300 employees at a ministry. I'm a chaplain to about several 100,000 members. I'm part of a church here locally. It's everywhere I turn. Then you add social media, and you see everybody puts their, this is happening now. I got stage 3 cancer. I got this, I got that. So I know it's a matter of time for all of us. We all walk through, at some point in our life, we walk through periods. I want to make sure that my faith in God is so strong that even no matter what happens, like Job, no matter what God may do or allow to happen to me, my faith will not be shaken.
Yeah.
And I can't do that on my own. I don't have that in me, just like a lot of people don't. But I want to be able to somehow live that. If I wind up in, if the world turns upside down tomorrow and we don't have all the things that we just take for granted today, there have been people that live that way. And so in my mind, I'm constantly thinking, God is my only hope. And I may have water, I may not. I may have food, I may not. I may have groceries, I may not. Whatever. And I preached a message last week, that out of Psalm 23, verse 6, I'll dwell in the house of the Lord forever. It's not a mantra, but that's my home. Heaven's my home, and I'm going to live it by faith, and I'm going to dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so true. And, when I think about it, if we'll stay focused on a strong faith and make that the priority, obviously there are the residual effects of that. It's the influence that we have with others. But if our focus is not on having a strong faith, we will replace it with something else, won't we? And most of the time it's just us trying to see how successful we can be with our own things that we are focused on. But
I found it, the older I get, the harder it is to enjoy the stuff.
That's true.
I'm like, and I have an appreciation for every day, and I know, I probably need a hobby, but there's a part of me that's like, I'm not taking any of this with me.
Yeah.
Most of the junk that I have, nobody's going to want.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just kind of stripping down and saying, Lord, I don't need all this. I've been doing this for years, but it's I don't know. It's just faith. I want my faith to be strong.
Yeah.
I want to live that way. And if I can influence somebody else by doing that, that would be a bonus for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And the truth is, if you are living that way, you are definitely influencing somebody else, because we can't escape our influence. It's happening every day. So
the people in my past that have, outside of the pulpit, that have influenced me the most in my memory were not people that had a lot of things.
Yeah.
But they were people that had a lot of God.
And that's true.
You just knew it. They talked to him every day. You felt like if you were in trouble and needed somebody to pray, you called them. Not because of the way their house looked, not because of the car they drove. None of that. It's because they knew God.
Yeah, it's so true, man. Well, that's certainly an encouraging message for us to all be focused on. So thank you again, and hope you have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks. Talk to you then.
Thanks for watching. Take a moment to share with your friends.